We staan aan de vooravond van heel veel moois met een prachtige spin-off, hopefully. Wat kunnen we verwachten? Are we ready? How can we prepare? Nou, daar gaan we allemaal op in vanavond. Ik wil Tessa het gras voor de voeten niet wegmaaien. Dus Tessa, the floor is yours. Yep.
That was very short and sweet. Thank you, Tirsa. We're going to speak English today because there are some English speakers in the room. So I hope everybody can keep up. But of course, everybody can speak English or understand it. So to start off, welcome everyone. I would please ask you to turn off your phones or put them on silent for the presentations. We're going to keep it very short and sweet. For the people that don't know Peers, actually Peers started 12 years ago. The young professionals wanted to have a networking gathering every week to discuss important subjects. And they have evolved, and now we are the Peers professionals. We like to invite specialists in their field to discuss very important topics to educate yourself further. So the theme of the whole year actually is the future of Suriname, because everybody's talking about oil and gas. Everybody's talking about local content, but what does it actually mean? People generally focus on the basic things, and we want to focus on the spin-offs, because it won't only be hotels and whatnot, it will be other diversifications. So this is why we're asking to come sit with us the CEO of Assuria. I will introduce him later, Merhai. Raúl Zweevel, HSE specialist from ExxonMobil. I'll say ExxonMobil, but Exxon in Guyana.
That's right.
And Carissa Essed from Staatsolie. Do you see how the men sit on one side and the women will sit on the other side? But that's fine, guys. And people that know me know I talk a lot, so I'll try to keep it short and sweet. I would really like if Mario could kick off this presentation for the people that don't know Mario. Mario is the CEO of Assuria. I'm getting nervous, I don't know why. He's the CEO of Assuria since 2020, but he's been at Assuria for a very long time, since 1997. I was still in high school, man. He's also, and I didn't know this, is very impressive because he is on so many supervisory boards that I thought I would do it on the top of my head, but I can't, because he's the chairman of the supervisory board for the Gulf Insurance and Assuria Life, LTDs both. He is the chair of the supervisory board of Assuria General, Guyana, and Assuria Life. He is a member of the supervisory board of Torarica Holding, a member of the supervisory board of Farosio, and is a fellow of the Dutch Actuarial Association and the Caribbean of Actuarial, oh my God, that's associations. So he also holds a master, of course. But Mario, the floor is yours. Can I have an applause for Mario, please? Yes, I'm sorry.
Can I have yours? Okay, good evening, everybody. Before I kick off, thank you for the opportunity, Pierce. Very nice initiative. I think initiatives like this, we can't have enough of these because we need to prepare for the future of Suriname, right? Staatsolie agrees, of course. Before I start, just a quick poll. How many business owners do we have in the room? How many people here are business owners? Okay, so the rest is not self-employed, I guess. We're working for a company. Okay, and how many people still think they're a young professional? And not just a professional. Oh, okay, great. Okay, I'll try to keep it young. Somebody's gonna, okay, he's the clicker. Okay, so Assuria Group, I'll share a little bit about our company with you. Something about our evolution, an overview of the company, a little bit of our financials, our view on expected developments in Suriname, We did a small SWOT on Suriname based on what we know currently. And I couldn't resist to dive down a little bit and speak a little bit about, let's say, what we have to offer specifically to the market in terms of our product suite. One of our products, of which I think that is something, if people want to become part of the supply chain, they will need. Next slide. So this is our mission, sorry. I'm not gonna read the whole thing because everybody here is literate. But what I do wanna say is our group consists of 11 companies. We work throughout the Caribbean. Most of the companies, because our core is insurance, have deploy insurance activities, of course. We sell all lines of insurance: life insurance, health insurance, pensions, and general insurance. But we also have real estate companies. And through our investment company, especially in Suriname, we are a significant shareholder in a number of, let's say, important companies in the country. And that's why you'll see on my biography that I'm a member of the board of certain companies. That is because Assuria is a shareholder of these companies. So currently in Suriname, a part of being leading in insurance, we're also a major shareholder of 3 of the largest banks in the country: DSB, Jacana, and Finabank. We're the largest shareholder in Torarica. We're a significant shareholder in the Heineken brewery, in the Parbo brewery, sorry, Heineken owned. We're the second largest shareholder, as a matter of fact. The second largest shareholder after PPG in Farosio. CIC, VSH Foods, Margarine Vette Fabriek is also one of our holdings. Our philosophy in general is to help catalyze new ventures in the country based on certain criteria, of course: good governance, financial feasibility, contribution to society, etc. That's why, for instance, recently we helped catalyze the TPL Cinema project as an equity shareholder, but also the Courtyard Marriott project, where we participated both as equity and as debt financer. We support also in another way, if companies go to the capital market and source the market for capital. For instance, if I may reveal, we're one of the capital providers of Staatsolie, for instance, currently. And we're not shy of expanding that position in order to support, through our capital, which is in essence capital of our policyholders as shareholders, so part of society's capital, the development of our state-owned company as well, and support our oil and gas industry in Suriname. We aspire to be a people-focused Caribbean institution of choice, offering trustworthy, innovative, and easily accessible insurance products to protect what people value, and always built on a solid and secure base. We want to maintain a healthy financial and solid balance sheet and a healthy performance for our shareholders. Ultimately, our aspiration is to become a world-class organization. And that is, let's say, how we establish the companies everywhere we go, and how we try to introduce and develop the culture of doing business, and also the culture within the company of conducting the collaboration within the company, of course, because the whole intention of the group is to inspire the environments where we are. But you cannot inspire the environment where you are if you're not able to inspire the workforce within your company. So a good amount of time is being spent from leadership or by leadership in, let's say, creating an as collaborative as possible environment where people can work and deploy their talents as much as possible. Some of my staff members are here, so you can interrogate them to what extent that is true or not. Next. Company has a set of core values. In order to achieve our ambition, care is important, because we don't only want to sell insurance products, but we do want to sell it with an experience whereby we also offer an element of care to our customers. Buying an insurance policy, most of the time, you will not utilize the policy, because I'm only in a fairly small percentage of of the cases there will be an incident or a claim or whatever, but we still think that having an established relationship with Assuria, you should be able to feel the relationship in terms of the services that we offer. So for instance, how do we translate care to the market? In Suriname, for instance, if you buy a motor vehicle policy with us, even if you don't have an accident, we offer you roadside assistance, because without having an accident, you might need us sometime when you have a flat tire or your battery runs low or whatever. Right? And then we want to be there for you because we care. Well, innovation, I hope you can testify, because most of you live here, of the fact that we are a very innovative company. We constantly, in a structural way, try to develop products, new products and services. We even have a separate innovation department. It's a department that helps us to be ahead of the game. Because in all sectors, but especially in financial industry and financial services, in our opinion, a key for success is that you try to be ahead of the game and remain ahead of the game. And having a structure of innovation in your company helps in a structured way identify areas of innovation, and helps not only create ideas, but transform ideas to, let's say, execution, which is very important, of course. I can feel that currently recently we developed something for e-bikes. We also developed something in terms, because we wanted to contribute to financial inclusion in the country. And in our opinion, financial inclusion is not only creating more access for people into the banking sector, but also into insurance. Insurance penetration in our countries, in Suriname, is but similar to Suriname, Guyana, and other less developed countries, or let's call them emerging countries, is still very low. So we see it as an opportunity, but also as our obligation to develop products to increase the insurance penetration in the country. Recently, we developed a basic savings product that, for a very minimum amount of monthly installments, helps people in a very easy way. I think they can apply for the product without underwriting, just by clicking on a QR code. Helps them to start saving for the future. In our opinion, is also a way of getting people aware and bringing them into the system and increasing our insurance penetration. We're about to launch a new product. It's a second medical opinion. Am I allowed to refill or not, Marilyn? Monique? Okay. Second medical opinion is also, let's say, our way of contributing current situation. We know that healthcare in Suriname has been, let's say, deteriorated to a certain level, and there might be a need sometimes for a second medical opinion. We try to develop together with a international network of healthcare providers, a product whereby people, for a decent price, can ensure themselves that if necessary, they can get a second medical opinion out of Suriname from a medical specialist outside the country. Just a few examples of innovation. In the last part of the presentation, I'll discuss liability insurance. So that is also something we innovated, especially for the coming developments. Next. Okay, so these are the territories where we're active. The person who made this slide didn't realize that these countries are on the left of Suriname and not on the right. But I don't think that was taken into account, but so forgive us for that. But this is where we grew out of, and we started in 2012. I can also explain the reason why between 2001 and 2012, 2010, the Surinamese economy did pretty well. Oil prices were high, and our company grew significantly. But we realized that for different reasons, Suriname could not be the only market where we should remain active, and that we should start look at opportunities outside. And that's when we started investigating, especially the opportunities in neighboring Guyana. And once we started in Guyana in 2012, we started looking at other markets. There's also a reason why we have this combination of markets. Guyana was an emerging market. about to kick off on oil and gas. When we started, Exxon did not yet confirm their FID. But we were a strong believer of that it would happen, and we thought it would be a good time for us. So timing is important to start investing and start, let's say, our operation there. I believe the developments in Guyana started in 2015. Am I correct? 2015, right? So the first 3 years after we started were a good time for us to go through an initial learning curve, and then when the economy started to boom, we had, let's say, all the, how do you say kinderziekte in Engels? Whatever, first tooting issues we had behind us. Next slide, please. This gives you a nice picture of where we come from. Let me move a little bit to the side. Our company has a history of 130 years because Assuria is a merger of companies that took place in 1991. Most of these companies were Dutch companies branch offices of Dutch companies that established over the year, because Suriname, of course, most of you know, was a colony of the Netherlands. Around 1991 in the Netherlands, most of the parents of these companies merged into Aegon in the Netherlands, and there was, let's say, a reorientation necessary of the operations outside Suriname, outside the Netherlands. And that's when the conversation here in Suriname started with local investors about how can we bring those companies together. That's how Assuria was started. The name Assuria was the result of a contest among staff members, because there was a need to find a new name for the company. And then one of the staff members came up with a name. Some of the contributions and remarkable milestones of the company are in 1994. We were one of the initiators of the Suriname Stock Exchange. In 2000, we were the first insurance company introducing private healthcare in the country. Health insurance, by the way, private health insurance. In 2001, we made a significant entry into the banking. That's when we bought our initial, let's say, position in the banking sector. We took over the shares in DSB Bank from ABN AMRO. And we also established the first international investment fund in Suriname. In 2012, as I said before, we went to Guyana. In 2013, it was also remarkable. That is our first market entry in Trinidad and Tobago, where we took over Gulf Insurance Limited. And 2 years after that, that's not on the graph, we bought our second company in Trinidad and Tobago, Assuria Life Trinidad and Tobago. Well, in 2019, we moved into that's also a landmark milestone for us. Our building, where our current head office is located right now, Assuria High Rise. And well, in 2024, another milestone, entry into a new market, Curaçao, where we bought the assets and liabilities of Sagicor, a life insurance business, and we rolled that into a separate licensed entity, Assuria Verzekeringen Curaçao NV. And that's where we are right now. And you see the arrow is pointing towards the ceiling. So that means that we're not done yet. Next. Okay, a little bit more about the company, but most of these things you know. A lot of people ask me how many people work for us. We have 440 people working throughout the territories. 50% of that, more or less, works in Suriname. Next, please. This is the leadership team of the group. We have a leadership team in Suriname. That is, let's say, the team heading the holding company and overseeing all the operations. And we have executives overseeing specific territories, Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, and Curaçao. And within our leadership team, everybody has their own area of responsibility, of course. And that's, yeah, this is the team that leads the company. Some of our financials. Our asset base is a little over $500 million US. Of that, a significant part is investments. Of those investments, a significant part are held in Suriname, but another significant part are held outside of Suriname. These are our income and profit numbers. We're in the process of finalizing our audited 2023 numbers, and later this month we'll publish and present that to our shareholders. Next slide. To our shareholders, we return on equity around, let's say roughly between 20 and 40% of their investment. And on the investment book specifically, because we invest in different territories, we benefit, let's say, from the opportunities in the different geographies where we operate. We make between, let's say, 6 and 10%. Okay, most of you, I think, came here because you want to pick my brain on what's going to happen in Suriname and what do I think of Suriname. Well, first of all, I don't have a crystal ball. And two, I'm not that close to the oil development, so I can't tell you a lot because I'm not, let's say, informed in detail. What I can share with you is our own experience in Guyana, because we've been there, and we went through the development. So we have a real-life experience of how a society and an economy transforms once the investment starts. And of course, based on our own assessment and conversations, I can share with you what we think is going to happen. Most of what I'm going to share with you, I don't think it's new. At the very best, it'll be a reconfirmation of what other people have already been saying. But even that is good, I think. Hopefully, we can have a discussion around this afterwards. What we think from Suriname in general is that we are rich in natural resources. There's a significant economic potential because of the upcoming oil and gas development. Because if we manage it well, the income stream generated out of that industry alone can create a transformational flow in our country and can transform our country from what we are now to, let's say, a fully developed country. Our location is strategic. We are strategically located on the north coast of South America. We're part of the Caribbean. We're on mainland South America. We're potentially easily accessible in different ways. And the fact that we, I would say by default, not by design, kept such a large part of our forest can now become a very important element for our future development because it can help us diversify our economy. And in a world where sustainability becomes more and more important, the fact that we have such significant natural untouched forest resources can help us position ourselves in a unique way, again, if well managed and well governed. That brings me to our weaknesses, our economic dependence currently. If we remain too dependent on oil and gold, natural resources that are ultimately going to run out, either because we won't be able to find them anymore, or the world is not going to need them anymore. In the same way, we won't be able to, let's say, sustain on a high level, on a desired level, our society for the longer term. We have a lot of infrastructure challenges. If you don't address those, developing your oil and gas industry and all other industries will become difficult. If you don't have a simple, fast, easy access to your international airport, if you don't have ports, if you don't have bridges, if you don't have well-paved roads, if you don't have storage facilities, you name it, you'll run into trouble because you'll get congestion somewhere in the pipeline. And we need to develop the whole pipeline, not only one element of the pipeline. We have a lot of governance issues if we don't address that. That is from, let's say, political perspective, but also corporate governance perspective. So, I mean, when we discuss in our society governance issues, most of the time the discussion is about who is the leadership of the country and who do we appoint, who do we elect, etc. But I think equally important is who are the people running our companies, who are the people running our other institutions, because the whole set of governance in the country, if be it the private sector or the public sector, needs to be equally well developed, managed, structured, controlled, etc. Otherwise, you'll end up with a system that has leakage and leakage in different ways. It'll make your country, let's say, politely said, inefficient, but you understand what I mean. Human capital is also a weakness in our opinion, because if the developments go as the way they go, we won't have enough people. We have a very small population, and not only enough people, we won't have enough experienced and talented people or educated people, because even if we would have enough people, if we don't have a good educational system in place or a training system in place, we won't be able to supply the industries that are potentially going to develop with the required talent, and that'll be a lost opportunity, because knowledge will be imported while we have, let's say, a young population that needs work. Where do I see opportunities? Of course, capital influx. You've all heard that Total is going to invest around 11 billion. Everybody wants a piece of that. We don't even know how much Petronas is going to invest and all those other guys, so it might be a significant amount of money that's going to come in. We need a way to structure those capital influxes and in such a way that it finds its way to society. There are different sectors that are going to grow potentially if oil and gas starts developing, because the supply chain, that's what we saw in Guyana, is significant. For instance, in Guyana, we saw a direct correlation between oil and gas, growth of the economy, and opportunities that came our way. Just only insurance business coming our way. And I mean, we saw a lot of hotels being built, restaurants. In general, disposable income grew, and that is something, let's say, that's an opportunity. I already talked about infrastructure and disposable income and growth of employment. In the initial years when I went to Guyana, there was, let's see, criminality was very high, especially rough criminality, etc. I have to say these days, but maybe you can confirm or deny, I have to say that it's dropping significantly, because all these guys are finding work. They're becoming welders and everything, and they, so they choose to have a decent living instead of go and rob people. Okay, well, I said threats are shortage of people, lack of knowledge, accommodation might be an issue, office space. I can reveal to you, we've anticipated even before the FID by starting to build our office buildings. The first building, to be honest, was not in anticipation of any development. It was more, let's say, based on the intention of creating a modern workspace for our company, because we wanted to, as a company expanding out of Suriname, we had the ambition to become a more modern company. I shared our vision with you. We wanted to be a world-class company, and in those deliberations, we came to the conclusion that the existing office facilities of Assuria were not supportive of that ambition. So we needed modern office space. A simple economic exercise showed that investing in our existing facilities would not be, let's say, the most optimal thing to do, because it would require significant investment. So we simply decided to sell one of those buildings, rent the other one out, source finances, and then start building our own new office facility in the southern part of Paramaribo. Shortly after the building was opened, we had COVID. So, for instance, the event center that we had there, which has, let's say, a social, commercial element. We wanted to give something back to society in our new building, because Suriname does not have any modern theater facility. But at the same time, it has to make commercial sense, of course, because we are a commercial company. That facility, for instance, in the COVID years was doing bad because, I mean, we weren't able to rent it. Nobody was organizing events, etc. But we started seeing, started being approached by companies who were looking for office space. And in that sense, COVID was a good thing for us because the building was more or less empty because most of the people were working from home. We had already, because of our, let's say, our decent technological level, we were able to deploy work from home easily, very quick. But then we had plenty of office space. So when I think initially Total came and asked if they could rent from us, we gave them 1 floor and later on 2 floors. And then later on Newmont came and we gave them 1 floor, etc. And that is how the whole idea of, hey, there might be an appetite for commercial office space. Soon after that, because we started following the developments a little bit better, we were of the opinion that at some point the oil and gas developments would kick off in Suriname and that the need for office space would increase. And then we decided to anticipate and start building a second office space. We opened that office building around, let's say, last year, beginning of this year, officially. Now, a few months after official opening, the whole building is rented out. So we are currently now under strain because we need to find alternative space for our staff because most of our buildings are rented out to external parties. So I expect the same thing for hotels to happen and storage facilities and you name it. You guys might know it even better. Next slide, please. Speaking of sectors and industries, you might know this one. I think you can find it on the internet. We use this because it's a nice picture to demonstrate what's happening in a society once we start pumping oil. Then you have, let's say, a circle of the supply chain. Some of the industries closer to the center of the development and some of the industries a little bit further away. I hope you can find your industry and your position, so yeah, you might figure out how far and how, what your chances are of being successful as part of the supply chain. And the whole idea is that the closer you are to the epicenter of the developments, the more complex your industry is. And let's say from an oil company sourcing your services perspective, you have to be more compliant. And the further away you are, the less they will require for you. That brings me to the next slide. Liability. All these companies, all these industries, in our experience, if you want to become part of the supply chain of the oil company, they will present you at some point after they select you, based on their own selection and compliance criteria, etc. They will present you a contract, and in that contract, they will require you to have some certain level of liability insurance, because they are very, let's say, risk averse in the countries where they operate. You can imagine they are very large-scale international companies. They have operations all over the world. They want to ensure that there's a guy in Paris sitting in a head office who's leading the whole thing, and he wants to sleep well at night. So he wants to make sure that everywhere in the world where he deploys his operation and he acquires services from somebody, be it a baker or somebody who's doing cookies or whatever, that this person, whatever happens, they are covered with a proper liability insurance. So it'll always be something in the terms of liability. There are different types of liability coverages. You have public and third party, workers' compensation if you employ people, employer's liability if you are an employer, professional indemnity if you are a lawyer or a doctor or whatever, third party liability if, for instance, they lease vehicles or other equipment for you, and environmental if you provide services to them, for instance, drilling or whatever. You'll need some type of liability insurance. In general, they will require you to have between $2 and $2.5 million of coverage at a minimum, sometimes higher, depending on the specialty and the size of the contract. We were faced, and that took us a little bit by surprise, so you can never be too prepared. That's also our lesson learned, because initially, when people came to us and asked for a quotation, they came back to us because sometimes the size of the contract, so the revenue side of the contract, compared to what they had to pay in terms of premiums to us, it didn't make the whole thing feasible anymore for them. And we were getting complaints, as maybe a hard word, but it could have been in the complaint area, because people started to become concerned, because on the one hand, they were getting the opportunity to become supplier of, but on the other hand, it wasn't feasible for them to do it, because economically, if they had to go and buy a very expensive insurance, I mean, the bottom line didn't justify the whole investment. We went back to our reinsurers, because we don't do this alone. We work with preferably A-rated reinsurers, the biggest in the world. We had a conversation with them, and we explained to them that we wanted to create an environment in our country that, especially for the small and mid-sized companies providing services to oil companies, we wanted to make it easily accessible for them. I mean, I just told you in my vision, I want to have easily accessible insurance solutions, so it's my obligation to create alternative solutions. And we succeeded in finding favorable terms and making it easier for people to get a quotation and ultimately their policy. And that is current day situation. Next slide. There are always some specific sectors, as I already said. If you are very close to the epicenter of the oil winning, these industries, it will be a little bit more complex to get you the insurance policy that you need, because your business is a little bit more complex. But we still can do it. The only thing is you won't be able to get that easy, accessible, self-do-it solution within 3 days type of policy. It'll have to be part of your, let's say, extensive preparational stage when you prepare your quotation for the oil company you want to provide services for. We had, for instance, recently port facilities. They Total issued something for the existing ports. I think 3 or 4 of the ports were competing in a tender. All of them had to have at least $10 million in coverage. There's another 2 or 2.5, but 10 million. And then we worked with them as much as possible, and our reinsurers, to be able to provide them with quotations so that they could include that in their packages that they submitted to the oil companies. Next, please. In general, still proud. We had major improvements for the, let's say, for the majority of the industry and the supply chain. We will be able to provide easy, accessible insurance, liability coverage as part of your tender document requirements. If you are in a complex industry, we would also be able to do it, but then, let's say, it will require a more comprehensive underwriting procedure. That is it, more or less, I think, what I have for you. I hope I didn't take too much time and I wasn't too boring. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mario. Yes, it was. You took a little bit more time, but thank God it was very interesting, and I think it's very helpful for the audience to know how this works. Well, I'm going to move to Raúl Zweevel. He sent me his bio, and I was so dissatisfied with the information he sent me, but I know him personally, so I'm going to give you my own bio, because he's very modest. Raúl is from the TU in Delft. We were at the same university, and he graduated cum laude. So he was one of the Surinamese who we looked up to, who we wanted to be like, but we couldn't meet the brain power he had. He went to, and he finished his studies really fast, because usually you do like 7 years, but he went like, phew, and it was cum laude. And then he moved to Exxon, and he did a lot there. He has more than 22 years under his belt for Exxon. But when you say Exxon, you're like, okay, fine. No. Raúl was sent to several other countries. So they sent him to Dubai, they sent him to London. He was in the Netherlands, in Belgium. And every time he would go, he would win awards for best performance in HSE. I know, we follow you. So this guy is a big thing. And we have a lot of Surinamese abroad that have really good resumes that, you know, due to the fact that we don't have those big industries here, but we do have them now, Raúl, they can't come and work here. So Raúl is now the only Surinamese in the management team of ExxonMobil in Guyana. And I'm very happy to see him here. So the floor is yours, Raúl. May I have a round of applause?
Thank you so much. That are quite some expectations. Thank you. Really, it's an honor to be here. I'm really privileged to be part of peers, and thank you for the invite, of course. And as you did mention, indeed, yeah, quite some experience in the oil and gas sector. I left, so I'm born and raised in Suriname, but I left almost 30 years ago, 3 decades almost. So yeah, it's quite a time. So I'm really pleased to be here in the region and to really contribute as well this evening. So I'm indeed in Guyana now, almost 4 years with Exxon, specialized more in environmental management. So indeed, we try to ensure that all work that goes on, whether it's from drilling to indeed exploration and operations, that all goes well on the environmental side as well as the compliance side. So what I actually want to share with you is really short 3 slides of what is going on in Guyana, all the oil and gas developments, what Exxon is doing, and hopefully that will inspire also what Suriname will be going through. Very exciting times. I'm really excited for Suriname and glad that there's an opportunity for Suriname to come and start in the developments. So maybe if you can go to the next slide. Quick overview of Guyana. So as you know, in 2015, there was a discovery. The Liza field oil was discovered. Many people won't know that people have been, or companies, several companies have been looking for oil in Guyana for almost 100 years, and they were not successful. They did find maybe some oil shows, but not the amount of oil that was found. It was actually almost by luck that in 2015, when the contract was about to expire for Exxon, and Exxon had the requirement to drill at least 1 well, that they picked 1 well. And they actually planned to drill 2 wells. And so they picked the right one because the other well was actually dry. So if they would have picked that one, we would not have seen all of these developments. So since 2015, things really got accelerated. Since that time, we have had several significant discoveries. Mentioned over 30, is going towards the 40 discoveries now. 6 drill ships active in the waters in Guyana for several years now. And and so they're doing all different categories of drilling. So the exploration side, the appraisals and developments for all the project that has been FID'd already. 36 wells delivered in 2023. By now, we are almost close to 200 different wells that have been drilled, both on the exploration and development side. On the FPSO side, it was mentioned briefly by Mario. 2015, we did a discovery, and in record time, December 2019, we were able to start up the first FPSO, that is Destiny, achieving by now a rate of 165 KBD, that is 1,000 barrels per day. Not long after that, we were able to get that, Unity, actually serving the same reservoir, the Liza reservoir. And after that, Prosperity in November 2023. There are also a number of major other projects that are in the pipeline, literally in the pipeline. So we have been working on the gas-to-energy project. That is a project that will feed gas from the offshore facilities to the onshore facilities. And that pipeline is actually ready by now, more or less. and ready, waiting for the government to finish up their power plant, and then hopefully somewhere next year or the year after, we'll be able to feed gas to generate relatively cheap electricity for the country. There are also a few other projects in the making which have already been FID'd. So that is Yellowtail, startup somewhere 2025. Uaru, also another one, 26. Whiptail, 27. And then we're looking into a 7th FPSO, that's Hammerhead, that is being looked at. Hopefully FID could be taken somewhere next year. With all of these projects and commitments, I think we're around 55 billion US dollars committed in FID. Some of them already spent, and some of it going to be spent. If you can move to the next slide. So, as I did mention, what did we actually, from a more technical standpoint, generated? So we are currently at around a little over 650 KBDs from the 3 FPSOs. And with the plans in place, we are likely going to grow to 1.3 million barrels per day by end of 2027. If it comes to what we have paid the government, over 5 billion US dollars in less than 5 years went into the National Natural Fund. And also what I did mention, there's quite a number of wells that have been drilled. And so there's a lot of activity. If you realize a lot goes on offshore, but it all needs support from the onshore side. So there's a lot of activity needed to make this all happen. On the next slide, this a little bit on the local content. As you know that the Guyanese government did implement a Local Content Act by the end of 2021 that actually forces, in different 40 sectors actually, forces oil and gas companies to use local Guyanese suppliers and vendors for all kinds of goods and services. Apart from that, of course, ExxonMobil is using Guyanese suppliers, so over 1,500 suppliers have been used since 2015. I know the Guyanese government has a kind of certification system where they do want to make sure that the Guyanese companies that are providing services meet specific standards. For example, the company needs to be owned at least 51% by a local, by a Guyanese person. So in total, they have a little over 800 of these companies since 2021. But apart from that, also, if you look at the rate of growth, there's now around 6,500 Guyanese directly involved in the oil and gas sector. And of course, we're not talking about the spin-offs and the indirect people that work in the oil and gas sector. So quite subspent in 2 billion, sorry, which was spent since 2015. So really significant amounts. And I'm really trying to say this to let you see and know what could be coming in Suriname. Maybe not to the scale right now, but quite some numbers could be similar. And also if it comes to corporate social responsibilities, as you know that we as the companies do want to make sure that the people in the country also get some additional benefits. So we have invested in quite some community investments, so in healthcare, youth, women empowerment, and in the environment. As well, we are a major sponsor of cricket. Well, that's very different here in Suriname, but in Guyana, cricket is really a big thing. And so the sponsorship in 2023 as well in 2024 generated quite some contribution to the local economy in excess of 100 million US dollar. So, and also if it comes to educational and vocational training, we've done quite a bit in Guyana. So there's a training center that opened up that is training local Guyanese to be able to work offshore. So for example, welding and all kinds of other technical works that is needed, especially on the FPSOs offshore. With that, in short, I think there's a really great opportunity for Suriname now, as the FID has been pronounced now by Total. I think there's a great opportunity for Suriname to dive into this and really get the development going. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Raúl. So, and to give everybody, because I always like that people are, whipping up the numbers and telling you how much money, but it's very important to have context. And if you look at Guyana, they're producing now 650,000 barrels a day, and in Suriname they're anticipating around 220,000 barrels per day. So it's 1/3, one FPSO, and they're looking at the second FID coming in 2028. So the thing I always liked, I also used to work at State Oil, is that when the international expats would come to Suriname, you would read in the news, they found oil in Guyana, they found oil again. But what is happening is unprecedented in the world, because it's very difficult to find oil. So for us, it's a normal thing, but actually what is happening in this area, the Guyanas, is totally not normal. So this is something that's very important for us to know. So all eyes are on the Guyanas. And I think Guyana has now the 5th biggest oil reserve in the world, if I'm not mistaken. Top 5. So this is how much oil they found in a very, very short period of time. So without further ado, we also have a power lady with us. And Carissa Essed, she now works at the State Oil. But before coming to Suriname, she used to work in Texas. And she's also one of my close friends. And we didn't like her being in Texas. And we kept trying to get her here. And she would say, no, I have so much to learn. So then they moved her, because if you're good, they will move you to other places. So they had moved her to The Hague, where she also worked at, I always forget the abbreviation, but I wrote it down, don't worry. Carissa worked at CBNI in Texas, and due to her professionalism, they said, no, we need you to move to another country because you're needed there. She also has 16 years of experience in the oil and gas industry from the process engineering side, so all the pipelines and all those calculations. You can ask her, she'll know. And then she came back. So we were so very happy, and then she went for her MBA in California, went to Singapore, and God knows where else. And now she has landed and came back home. So Raúl, you're next. But without further ado, Carissa, the floor is yours. May I have an applause for her?
All right, don't ask me about any calculations. I've been in project management for 6 years, so calculations are a little bit hazy. All right, so the past 3 years I've been doing local content projects at Staatsolie, and that's what I'm gonna enlighten a little bit today. I have to say a lot of my slides will be, if you were at the SEOX this year, you probably heard this story already, but I added some bonuses. So managing expectations and collaborations in local content, that's the subject. Next, please. I just added this picture just to see what it looks like. I think, yes, his presentation just had some FPSOs. This is what it looks like underwater in the FPSOs. These are some of the equipment they use. This is what they're talking about when they're talking about an FPSO. Next. So how can the power of local content unlock new opportunities and initiatives that benefit us all? That's everyone's question, even ours. So I'm going to talk today about how Staatsolie tackled this question. Mario also presented this circle, but I want to go more to, I think everyone saw the circle already and looked whether their services are in there or what they could do. But I want to look more at this one, not job creation, that one, the induced effect. If we're talking about companies, we have direct effect, indirect, and induced effect. And actually, the induced effect is the one that will have the most impact on our country. But it's also the one everyone they focus the less on, because everyone is looking in this circle, what can we do to provide the oil and gas sector? But the companies are not companies, the economy will live on that induced effect. So it's something we should not forget. All right. Local content initiatives by Staatsolie. That's where I'm. So when this started a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, Staatsolie said, it's coming, it's coming. Nobody, or sometimes even we doubt ourselves that it was coming. So, but we said we need to do something. We need to be early. We need to be early in the game. So we started thinking and we started looking around the world and what could Staatsolie do to start building that local content that will be very important once the discoveries are made. So there are two things, workforce development and supplier development. So in workforce development, we knew a challenge would be technical capacity. And in 2018, there was a study done by DAI, the industrial baseline study, and together with it, there was also a TFET and higher education study. From that TFET and higher education study, one of the suggestions was invest in TFET. Those are the workforce that's the low-hanging fruit. That's the workforce that can get work the easiest on the platforms or in the oil and gas industry. So we started with the Natin Upgrade project in 2022, and we have an oil and gas program running there since 2022, and we also, the infrastructure, the teachers, we also have a whole project team from Staatsolie there that is doing an upgrade of Natin. I have to say, I think last week, 2 weeks ago, the first 10 students from the oil and gas program graduated. And we have 45 coming up next year, so that's a good thing. And based on the need, we will have the third cohort starting next year, and we don't know how much yet. That's going to be based on the needs. The companies are going to tell us what's the workforce that they need. The T-Basit facility also, I think in 2022 we knew T-Basit is a training that is always needed when you go offshore. Guyana had not opened their facility yet when we started this search for T-Basit training in Suriname. It was only possible in Trinidad. So the whole region always went to Trinidad. Everyone working in the offshore industry always went to Trinidad to get this training. And you have to get this training, it's 4 years. Every 4 years, everyone working on FPSOs, drill ships, if it was in the region, they went to Trinidad to get that training. So we put out a request for interest, which companies are interested in doing the T-Basit training, and we leveraged, we said, we have some space across the refinery. We leveraged that space to put up the T-Basit training. It's a very large investment, so there was a lot of hesitance to start that training when you don't know there's going to be the development here yet. So we had a couple of companies who said, we want to take the risk. So we had a couple of applications. I think it was 5 companies in total. 3 went through. And from those 3, one was chosen, that was Gersten. And they delivered within the expected, a little bit delay, but within the expected time frame. They delivered a TBASI training facility. So since June this year, we have TBASI trainings available in Suriname. SAO is also one of the schools that we're working with. They're very well known for their welding program. So we fund the welding and the Gawasa training. But we want to focus a little bit more on the welding because everyone says they're going to need welders. So we want to focus a little bit more on the welding training when it comes to SAO. And something that's also in the works is a facilitation with a knowledge exchange between schools in Trinidad and Tobago and Suriname. So a couple of schools from Trinidad and Tobago were here in June for the SEOX, and they also went on excursion with different schools to see what Suriname needs and what Suriname actually has. Because even in Trinidad, they look at Suriname, and there are some sectors that we are more developed in and that they want to learn from. So next. All right, now we come to supplier development. We also in 2022 we started the Blue Wave. No, in 2023 we started the Blue Wave Supplier Development Program. This program, I think the next slide has a little bit more on this program. Maybe we should go to the next slide first. Yes. So what is this program? Basically, it's a stepping stone to getting your company ready to serve not only oil and gas, but international companies. And I wouldn't say only serve. It's basically a stepping stone to get your company organized. And mostly in the requirements that the oil and gas, why it's focused on the oil and gas industry is because they have a lot of requirements. So HSE, cybersecurity, quality, corporate policies, technical capabilities, finance, ESG are all subjects that you would need, your company would need their processes for. They would need the management of it, the auditing of it, everything would need to be in place, and you would need to show that you have it in place. So this, what this training does is that it gives you the tools, it has a library, it gives templates for all these different pillars, what you need, what kind of documentation you need, and it gives templates of the documentation and workshops that also explain the documentation, why you need it and what they actually look for, or what is important to put in that documentation. It is by no way, what you fill in is not being checked. So in this program, it mainly shows you what you need, and it gives you the tool, the template to do it. But if it's your responsibility to put the right things in it. And I think the next step after this program would be, if your company needs it, to get audited, to check the content of what you put in the tools that you got from this training. So I just want to make that clear, because it's not saying that you're audited or that your company is totally certified once you do this program. Maybe go back. So the Blue Wave program started in 2023. 24 companies graduated they actually ended in December 2023, but the graduation was in January 2024. And we then had 34 companies participating this year, and 29 of those 34 companies graduated in October this year. There are multiple cohorts planned because of the interest in this program. There are multiple cohorts planned for 2025. But the logistics, because we want to have multiple cohorts, still needs to be we still need to look into the logistics of it. But be assured that by January, February, we're going to start a new cohort. Just one more thing. Go back. Yeah, sorry. One more. Another thing for supplier development that we do is manage and monitor the supplier, Suriname supplier database, supplier registration portal. I'll have more on that later. We initiate workshops and information sessions, and we are also setting up an enterprise development center in cooperations with key stakeholders, so the private sector, banking, any key stakeholders that can cooperate. And it's expected to launch at the end of this year. Maybe a little bit more, what does an enterprise development center do? Eventually, an enterprise development center, the supplier database that I will talk about a little bit later, the enterprise development center will actually manage that database. At this moment, Staatsolie manages it. An independent company or an independent institute like the Enterprise Development Center will manage the supplier portal. Also, the Blue Wave program. They will be the ones in charge of the Blue Wave program. They will probably, the goal is that they will have more programs based on the need. And because the Blue Wave program is only targeting a part of it, what's needed, but they will look into, analyze, and see, and look into the companies that are in Suriname and what they need, and on that need basis, they will have more programs, development programs. All right, a little bit more about the supplier registration portal. If you have not registered yet, please register. This portal, actually, last month was a busy month. Last month also, in October, we launched a new portal. It's basically the same, but it has a new look and feel. The developer is still DAI. That's the developer of the portal. We, as Staatsolie, manage the portal. Currently, everything was managed by us. The RFIs are being sent in, and we post the RFIs or any relevant information. We were the ones posting it. What's going to be new about this new launch is that the operators and the main subcontractors, they will have access to the portal themselves. So they will see the data that you put in there. They will see it. In the past, we exported it out in an Excel, and only a part of it, not everything, your documents. If they wanted documents, we had to go back and look into your profile and send it to them. Now, the documents, everything they can see live. So the message to everyone is, make sure that what you put in there is correct, and please, because we usually search per surface and goods, and one thing that was noticed is that a company has 20 surfaces or all surfaces. Most of the time, we have trouble then identifying whether you can really deliver the service that's needed. Also, there was an option, I think that option is taken out now. There was an option, other surfaces. Other surfaces is, nobody searches on other surfaces. So it would be a lot of the times your company didn't show up if we did the search. So those are little things that we need to look into when filling this in. Okay, how does the supplier registration portal work? You register on the portal. Be sure to fill in all the correct information. The buyer, and that's the operators, and Staatsolie as well. Still, Staatsolie will also publish their RFIs there. The operators, the main subcontractors, they will all publish relevant information on the portal. And on each information, they will give clear instructions on how you should reply to them. because some of them would like maybe a direct reply, some of them have an email to reply, and some of them even have another platform that you have to go to. So in that RFI or tender or what they put on there, they will give the instructions on what the next step is for you. But this is the first point of information. And yes, what you need to do, what you as a supplier need to do, you need to log into the portal regularly. What the new portal also has, if you have not logged in for 24 hours and there's a new RFI, it will send you an email notification that there's an RFI or anything, any kind of information, that there's new information on the portal. And in case you're interested, of course, react to the notification per the instruction. What the operator does, he reviews all the applications and he follows his internal supply chain process for pre-qualification and evaluation. I will go after you. This is just a example of one of the RFIs that was posted by Total. And then on the next slide, I will talk a little bit more about Follow's internal supply process, what the buyer does. Oh, maybe this. Actually, oh yeah, maybe this a little bit. So this is how it kind of works. Staatsolie, and probably the EDC will be Staatsolie later. That's the institutional role, and then the operators who will communicate through the portal with the Surinamese firms. So what does the buyer do? Every buyer has their own supply chain. So our supply chain process. So I'll talk about Staatsolie supply chain process. So once our buyers put an RFI on the portal, the information will probably refer you to these steps. On the Staatsolie website, you can sign on to the SAP Ariba. That's our vendor system, and through the SAP Ariba, if you follow these steps, I think I'm not going to go over all of them, but if you follow these steps, that's how they will handle their RFIs and their tenders. And last, we all want a lasting positive change. That's our common goal. So we need to align and support local content consensus, and we as the national oil company take our responsibility in that job, as you see with our previous projects and more to come. So that's it.
Thank you so much. So I hope you found this very interesting. It was supposed to last 10 minutes a person, but we had a little bit more information, but it was very helpful. The thing I would like to stress as well is these are very specialized vendors, etc. But don't forget, the people coming here will need gardeners. They will need people to babysit their kids. They will need taxi support. They will need people to bring them around. So word of mouth is a very important thing if you're providing these services. So be professional. Think about those kind of things. It doesn't have to be very complex. And with that said, I would like to ask, do you guys want to have a short break, or can we go to the questions? Depends on you guys, because it's been 1 hour and 15 minutes. What do you think? Questions? Okay, great. Is there someone that has a question? Question?
Oh, ja, hoort hem nou?
The question is.
Hi, mijn naam is.
Oh yeah, please state your name,
Yeah.
the question you want, the person you want to ask the question to, and then we can make it work.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Rajiv Hiralal. I came to this session since we're looking at the future and looking at Suriname's 100 years of extractive industry experience. I'm curious how we should design Suriname in such a way that we have a lasting positive effect or a stronger net effect. I'm curious from your perspective, how do we do things differently from now on that will give us a stronger lasting effect?
What do you want to ask? Who do you want to? Anyone? All of them? Ladies first.
I think it starts with us. Mario presented the challenges that we have, and I think we need to work on those challenges. One of the challenges in there was governance and politics, a subject no one wants to talk about. But we need to start talking about that, and we need to start looking into that, because we all try to stay away from it, but eventually that is a large sum is going to go to our government of all this. So eventually we do need to look and see how do we want to organize that part instead of individually thinking how is our company going to, or we need to look at both, because that's eventually, it is going to make a difference.
Okay, well, my opinion is, I mean, I can refer to my SWOT, but I think the consensus is that we need better governance and stronger institutions. But I think a pitfall is that all of us think that it's the other person's responsibility and ultimately the government's responsibility. What I think should happen is that there should be enough pressure, societal pressure, in the public space to ensure that whoever is the government feels the obligation, be it moral, but being structural obligation, to ensure that whatever revenues are being generated are being managed well. Because ultimately, I don't think it will be the revenue side. There will be enough money coming in. It will be a management issue. But we have a responsibility as a society to demand proper management from whoever we put in charge there. And we have different tools to do that. These kind of sessions are always a way of doing it, publicizing it, being, let's say, daring to give your opinion, and sharing the information with other people. But ultimately, I think we need to have a proper structure in place. It has to be governance. It's not going to fall out of the sky, and it's not going to be only Staatsolie is going to do it for us, even though they are developing to become a government in a government. That's also a risk. But I think that is the responsibility of the entire society. We as a society need to be, let's say, have a consensus of what we want, and we need to demand from whoever we put there that they ensure an equal distribution of wealth, not only to this generation but to future generations as well. And as I said it before, it's the responsibility of public leadership, but also the responsibility of private leadership. But ultimately, if everybody here, we're all leaders of the country, that is the responsibility we should start taking. Because I think the general attitude in the country has always been, it's not my problem. Somebody else is going to solve it for me. We need to change that attitude.
And I would fully agree with all of the previous people did mention. I think maybe one thing to add is indeed also really focusing on diversification, because everyone is talking about oil and gas, right? But being in Guyana, as for example, what I do see that the government really strongly pushes for is diversification. So all the oil money that comes in, really try to make sure that, for example, the agricultural sector or other sectors are being supported to make sure that they are ultimately independent of the oil and gas, or not only dependent on oil and gas. Just to add.
And on a positive note from my side, I think the societal responsibility is one that's very important. But looking from a positive side, people forget. But 1999, they wanted to sell off, the government wanted to sell off the state oil company. And everybody was in the street, so they didn't sell it. People forget, Fletcher wanted to buy it in 99. Secondly, the oil, hoe zeg je die putten?
Well,
The wells, they wanted to sell a well off to pay some debts. The Surinamese people didn't agree. So I think it will be a little bit different this time. Yes, we had bauxite and we had gold and we have other extractive industries. But compared to other industries, when you touch Staatsolie, you're touching the Surinamese people. And I hope that the people keep that mindset to keep the politics out, which will make it a lot easier for the oil and gas to flourish the way it should, the way it has been with all the potential. Are there any other questions? You can keep the mic because they're going to keep it.
Yeah. Hi, good night. Question to Raúl and probably Carissa after. But Raúl, I know you answered the last question like a politician, so I'll ask you, in terms of the, and you recognize that a lot of countries are going cashless and you know, different means of in terms of the economy, and recognizing that you are, in terms of the banking industry, you have shares and so on in terms of your company. And as I said, a lot of countries going cashless and so on. And we in Suriname haven't even reached the position of using credit cards, because a lot of businesses in Suriname do not take credit card. You know, and it's if we're looking to encourage investors, those are some of the things we need to look at. Another thing is that when you look at Suriname, I mean, I've been here over 10 years, and sometimes you get up in the morning and you go to put gas and recognize that, wait, the gas was $30 yesterday and it's 40 today. And one thing I've recognized in Suriname is nothing do ever go down when it goes up, you know. And as a business entity, you recognize that when you're bidding for a job or so, you go to the suppliers or whatever and you get a price. And many a times you have, as a business owner or a company, you have to take the hit as far as in terms of your return on investment, because of the fact that you would have catered for X, and tomorrow when you wake up in the morning, the price has gone up. Yeah? So if you could elaborate on that, and I don't know if I could ask Carissa the question one time or after. You tell me, moderator. After, okay.
All right, that's a quite complex question, but I think it all, I mean, it is really how the market works, right? I mean, I think it is also really important, and you talk about inflation and all of that, rising prices, that's typically a bit challenging for companies to manage. It's also really needed good governance. I mean, we talked about that. That's really needed. I think what is really important for investors and like business owners to really factor in all of those risks which are there. And based on those risks, you should be able to make your decision whether you are able to do business or not, or be a vendor or a supplier, taking into account what could happen. But of course, I think overall, what I've seen, especially in Guyana, things are getting better, right? I think things are stabilizing. Of course, there's inflation, but things are stabilizing. I think over time, things will also stabilize in Suriname and be a bit more predictable. And for example, in terms of what you did mention on I mean, there's very little places you can pay with your credit card and so on. I've been seeing that as well, even in Guyana. But I should say, in 3 years now, I've seen many places changing over and really making that step, because there's maybe a little investment to it, but people do realize that they are able to get more business if they are able to do that. So as a business owner, take a little bit more risk is maybe something that needs to be done.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the issue of the credit cards it all goes back to how modern do our banks operate, right? So, I mean, you have to realize that there is a correlation between how the economy does and how the financial industry does in a country. Suriname has gone through several crises economically in the past, 20 years, 15 years. We went from one crisis to another, and then a little bit of recovery, and then we went into a crisis again. We had COVID. We had a double dip, actually, COVID plus the economic crisis. And the banks suffered significantly. Most of the banks have had a terrible time keeping their head above water. If you follow the banking industry, you'll see that most of the large banks, especially the two largest banks in the country, run behind in their financial reporting. The SB Bank only, I think the most recent annual report is 2021, I believe. Hakre Bank, the same thing. The only one who's current with their banking reports is Finabank and the foreign bank, RBL. So you can imagine that management of those banks, given the economic challenges and the fact that they had balance sheets that were significantly polluted, especially by local government debt, were managing their crisis and didn't have any time and funds to invest in, let's say, modernization of the banking system, banking platforms, etc. I know that, as Raúl says correctly, if the economy picks up and things start to stabilize, the banking sector will start doing better, and then you might, logically expect them to start modernizing. I know that some of the banks are currently, let's say, relooking their strategy and actively trying to, let's say, change course. But these banks are not small speedboats. They are like big tankers. They move very slow, right? So it'll take time. It'll take time, especially in a country where people also tend to move slow. We have to be honest, right? Yeah, that's what I wanted to say about, let's say, modernization. With regard to the economic crisis in general and the way you have to prepare yourself. Everybody who does business here is facing the same thing, that it's hard to predict what the economic reality of the next day will be. Look at the exchange rate, for instance. The past year it has been going down so fast that everybody was starting to get concerned, because in some of the companies where I sit on the board, people had bought stock at a higher price, and then now they had to revalue it at a lower price. It reflected negative on their profit and loss. Now the exchange rate is moving up. You get the other effect, because people who have foreign debt on their balance sheets need to revaluate that foreign debt, and they're making losses again. And as you rightfully said, the same goes for us, because we also have to tender sometimes. Currently, yesterday we had to submit a large bid to a large potential vendor, for health insurance. It is, for me, at this point in time, it's difficult to predict what the healthcare rates of healthcare service providers in Suriname will be 1 year from now or 6 months from now. Because if the exchange rates keep moving up, hospitals, doctors, pharmacies, everything is going to go up. How do I price a health insurance product now realistically in such a way that I don't end up making a huge loss? So, it's very hard economic reality to operate in. I don't have a quick fix. What you sometimes do, you build in prudent margins, but then you run the risk of not getting it because the other guy is not that prudent and is willing, to take the loss. That makes it difficult. Let's hope that as the economy grows and stabilizes, that inflation comes down and currency remains stable for the longer while, so that the climate within which we have to operate becomes easier. But as I said, we have a role to play. We have to put pressure on it. Long answer to a short question.
The next question. We'll get back to you. There are
Professor. Good evening. My name is Hannah Surjusing. I have a question for Mr. Raúl. How did Guyana solve the problem of lack of skilled people? And did your diaspora came back after the big oil boom in Guyana? Thank you.
Well, good question. That is indeed something that countries like Guyana and Suriname are being faced with, lack of skilled labor. So there's a huge influx of skilled labor, so expats, basically. The way I think they have solved that is, and it's still in development, right? Is ensuring that we can really, and this is kind of accelerated, really make sure that we train up people. So that's why I talked about the training institute and so on, really making sure that we can get the skilled laborers as quickly as possible. But in the meantime, you have to depend on export to on import, sorry to say so, and really trying to work in parallel to make sure that you do get the local workforce of their skills. And for example, what I did mention in my team, over 70% is local. And so, and the philosophy is really trying to get expats in to be able to train the local people as quickly as possible to be able to contribute. And it's an ongoing process. There's no right way maybe of doing it, but it's at least something that we're trying to do. It's also a bit supported by the government, because the government is really pushing local content quite a bit with their Local Content Act. And that's a way of trying to make sure that, for example, the diaspora, as you did mention, are looking into coming back to Guyana to contribute.
Next question, please. I saw a man in the back. Oh, we can, yeah.
Good evening. My name is Marvin Sukerman. I think it was Mario identified the main weakness in Suriname is the lack of human capital. And it's actually also a question to the peers organization. How do we incentivize young Surinamese professionals living abroad to come back to Suriname and not wait for the boom of the oil and gas to solve the lack in human capital?
Question to me. I just identified the weakness. Solution is something for the government. So you're asking me a government question, a policy question. I mean, my guess is as best as yours. I can only give you private sector perspective. I would say it is a responsibility of companies and business owners to try to make let's say, a best estimate or a guesstimate of how the future of their company will look like based on a realistic, let's say, analysis of their environment and the opportunities they see. And if you, as a business owner or as a corporate leader, together with your HR people, etc., come to a conclusion that in a certain growth scenario of your company, you will need certain talent, I would say I would encourage you to start actively looking in the local market if you can identify people. 1, 2, Staatsolie gave an example, Exxon as well. Can you contribute to training and development? You have your own talent pool, or let's say the society. We, for instance, have an Assuria Community Fund. I didn't speak about that. But out of one of the goals of the Assuria Community Fund is to actively contribute to development of youth and education. And the third thing is, if you can't find talent here in the short term and you need people in the short term because of your own assessment of what's coming and what your ambition is, you will have to source talent outside Suriname. That's inevitable. I think that is a strategy that everybody more or less deploys passively, actively. That's the only way to solve the equation. And as a third one, of course, people from outside follow what's going on in Suriname. recruitment agencies, etc., and these international companies, they will also start recruiting people from outside. So if there is a space in your country that you're not actively, let's say, trying to fill, probably a foreign company will come fill it and bring their own talent. And maybe the fourth option is go find a sector partner outside and see if you can catalyze the growth of your company through a partnership. You don't always have to be the 100% owner of your company. Sometimes being owner of 50% of a bigger thing generates more revenue than being 100% of a smaller thing.
Very nice statement, Raúl. Do you have something to say?
Oh, no, I would echo what Mario did mention. Indeed, you do see that in Guyana a lot, indeed, is that where there's maybe lack of skilled labor, lack of human capital, that indeed companies or private companies would partner up with international companies and try to bring that expertise and learn and make sure that within a couple of years you would be able to be on your own and move on.
Other questions? I think the man with the white and black and white stripes would like to ask something.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening. My name is Francisco, and I think the lady to my left and the gentleman to my right were just reading my mind on the questions, because my question was indeed on human capital too. What I'm wondering, I've heard education multiple times. I've heard the influx of expats multiple times, and I think it's a huge opportunity for Suriname to gather that knowledge and skills and transfer it to the local workforce. However, I am wondering, what can Suriname, the Surinamese people, do on their own? Also the share of the companies that the companies can have in that, to strengthen the education in the country itself, so that Suriname doesn't have to rely completely on the influx of expats, but can also, well, cultivate that expertise pool. That's my question in general, not to a specific speaker.
I think Carissa.
So maybe we can, the experience, I want to relive the experience of the refinery, when the refinery was built. And I don't know the exact number, I think Dennis knows it a little bit better. But the refinery started with a lot of expats because we didn't have that expertise in the processes that were there when we started. And we started with, I think it was 90% expats. And we had a plan. Within 5 years, we would lessen that. And like I said, I don't know the numbers, but right now the refinery is, I think we have 5% expats, 2% expats. And the same thing with turnaround. The turnaround, our first turnaround, we did completely only with expats doing the turnaround. I think our operators, we did have some Surinamese welders, the bare minimum. Our turnaround this year from the refinery was almost completely done with, or a big part of it was done with Surinamese local staff. So it's gradual steps that can, and like you said, we started with expats. Everyone had someone that they had to walk next to. I was a process engineer too. We had for each process we had expertise that we had to learn from, and the knowledge was transferred, and that's how the refinery is actually operating at the moment. So it's little steps. It takes time, and I think from us, patience is needed. And the companies do need to think about that the expat is gonna, that time frame is gonna run out. So
maybe if I can add, I think we don't have the luxury of time. That's a bit of the issue, right? I mean, if you would know it well in advance, maybe 10 years, 15 years, you could take time and do invest in your human capital. But are things really moving quickly? I think the only way to really make sure that you can develop quickly is bring in that knowledge and then being able to transfer that knowledge in a couple of years and then move on. That's something that I wanted to add.
And for the people that don't know what a turnaround is the refinery has big maintenance programs that they need to look into, and that's when you need expats to come in. Are there any other questions?
Hi, good evening. I'm Priscilla. Mr. Merhai, in your view, ideally, how would a successful oil and gas industry in Suriname look like, let's say, in 10 to 20 years? And which milestones should the country then aim to achieve? And Mr. Raúl, could you share some of the lessons learned or success stories from Guyana that can guide Suriname in preparing for the oil and gas spin-off?
That's a very broad question. I think focusing on maybe on local content. I think the way and I saw a number of things and I didn't see that before. I think Suriname is well on its way. The mic is a bit. I think Suriname is well on its way to really organize themselves quite well. If it comes to local content. So in Guyana, you have the local content secretariat that is really trying to make sure that everything is well organized in terms of like suppliers that are registered, making sure they have their certificates, that only those suppliers are allowed to do business with. If it comes to local content, they do have specific, for 40 different sectors, they do have specific targets to meet, varying maybe from 5% to 100%. To give you an example, if it comes to transportation, that is one thing that they require, that 100% of transportation that is being organized in country should be done by a local supplier. So that's just an example. So I think, and I think another thing that is really important, because people maybe don't realize that there is a lot of money being spent. So you need to be able to register all of that and keep track of all of that. And so there's a Guyana local secretariat that keeps track of all of that. As one of the things I think is a good learning, and I did hear that something similar is being set up here. I think maybe on the mandatory side, that's maybe something you can discuss. Governments have different views on things. I'm not too sure how mandatory the program is here. In Guyana, it's quite mandatory, and it helps to push local vendors to get into the industry.
I know the subjects are really interesting, but we want to ask one more question. Oh, sorry. You still can respond?
Unless she doesn't want that anymore.
No, you can go.
Okay, no, I mean, at a very high level, broadly spoken, I would say similar to your household and your company, imagine your income increasing tenfold suddenly, or within, let's say, a reasonable amount of short time. What would happen? What would you logically do? It would transform your whole life, right? And your whole, let's say, lifestyle. But if you are a wise housekeeper, or let's say household manager or company manager, you would probably spend some of it and probably save some of it to ensure that you and the generations after you can maintain the increased level of wealth that you experience. And I think, look, if 20 years down the road, if we look back and we have not been able to solve the problems of today. So what are the problems of today? Budget deficit, large foreign debt, significant, let's say, a low GDP on average, very low position on the socio-economic and the human development index in the world. If we haven't solved these things, then I mean the whole journey has been unsuccessful. It's as simple as that.
So we're moving to the last question, but of course you don't have to leave after that. There's enough alcohol to enjoy yourself after that. So please, last question.
Hi, good night, everyone. First of all, I want to thank the Pierce crew. Very great platform here. I have a question more for Raúl. What are the risks for our beautiful nature of Suriname?
You knew that one was coming, so.
So in general, of course, oil and gas exploration, production has some environmental risks. And the way companies in general make sure that they manage these risks is making sure that they have proper things in place, making sure that you have proper mitigations in place to make sure that, first of all, it doesn't happen. But if it does happen, that you do have things in place to prevent, too much damage to happen to the environment. And perhaps you're talking about specifically to an oil spill, maybe. So to give you an example on that, you've seen that in Guyana recently, a so-called capping stack was actually brought into country. That is one of 13 in the world. So what is a capping stack really in short? So if a company or a company drills a well, pressures could potentially be of such a level that you are not able to control, or prevent oil or gas coming up. So if something really happens, you need to make sure, and it takes a couple of days, that you can bring like a big plug and put it on top of the well to prevent it the leak from continuing. The Guyana government really wanted the oil companies, so Exxon, to bring in the capping stack in country. I think it would also, I think there are talks of looking into whether that capping stack can be utilized within the region, which I think would be very good for, because such a capping stack is quite expensive. And the chance of something happening is really, really small, but if something happens, you need to make sure that you have the mitigations in place. And so I think that is one of the ways, specifically if you talk about the oil spill, that we are preventing major damage to the environment.
I would just like to add to it. In Suriname, we're already looking into those aspects. One is oil spill. There's an oil spill plan that has been reviewed by all operators and the government. I think they were having information sessions a couple of months ago, 2 months ago, about what's in the oil spill plan. It's totally transparent. You can look into it. Also what the predictions will be, scenario planning. And the capping stack is something they looked into. There are only 13 in the world. So, and Guyana has one. It's not that easy technically because it's also already identified that the one that's in Guyana will technically not fit. Or it needs some other technical equipment to fit on ours. So it's not just a plug and play. There are a lot of things that need to be looked into if we're looking at using it regionally, as was mentioned. And also the environment, CO2, greenhouse gas emissions, that's something Total Energies are for this block 58. We've also looked into different technologies to use to limit the emissions, the greenhouse gas emissions. The calculations has all, and I don't know it out of my head, so I'm not gonna mention any numbers. But there's already a calculation made on how much impact it will have on our negative status, on our carbon sink, and it's minimum for this block, this operation that's this FPSO.
Well, thank you so much for your attention. I don't like soccer, but you know what the soccer player Johan Cruyff always says? Elk voordeel heeft zijn nadeel. Every advantage has a disadvantage. You can't have it all, but you can mitigate. And I'm very happy to hear that it's being looked into how to mitigate the risks. I would like to ask Tirsa to close off this session.
Thank you, Tessa. I want to thank you on behalf of peers for your participation. We as peers endorse the importance of knowledge sharing. So I want to say follow us on social media and just check our next events. I want to thank the speakers. Carissa, I want to thank you for your valuable insights. And I also want to thank our sponsors, Assuria, Health Control Services, Milutu Management, Jacana, and the Peers Organization. So thank you very much, and let's have some drinks.